My attorney advised me that I gave up my right to compete, but not my right to prepare to compete. I built an implant system. They sued me. They weren't happy about that, but they lost.
What was so unique about Implant Direct back then?
First internet company, fixed prices, all in one packaging, great product. We know what you need, and that's what we're making. Clear Choice buys their implants somewhere between $70 and $80. Now, that same implant sells to a dentist in the United States for $229 and sells in Brazil for $23.
Wow.
I owned an aerospace company.
It's profitable?
No. Dentists believe all implants work equally well. When they think that, then price is the only factor.
If you wanted to start one more company, why did you sell it in first place? Dr. Niznick, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to have you here at the show.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
You are an entrepreneur, innovator with over 33 patents. Do I get the count right?
Four more pending.
You sold multiple companies, successful entrepreneur, probably the most successful entrepreneur in dentistry.
Thank you.
And you are called the Godfather of Dental Implantology. What earned you that reputation?
Barron's magazine wrote an article in 86, I think, on the dental implant industry, and they gave me that moniker, and it sort of stuck.
But what did you do? What was your contribution to the dental implant field?
In 1982, I launched my first company, Corvent Corporation, and what it did that had never been done before was it included an implant with a hex hole that you could put a variety of abutments into it. So it brought application-specific implants to the industry. In other words, if you want an overdenture, there's a certain abutment. If you want a crown, there's another one. If you want a bar, there was a different one. So varying the prosthetic abutments with implants, which everybody knows is an essential part of the industry today, I was the first one that did that in 82. I made a simplified system. I opened it up to GPs, whereas Nobel, who launched the year after I did, would only sell to oral surgeons and then eventually periodontists. So that brought implant dentistry to the masses. And I focused on education. So I had 6 education centers in this country. I had distributors around the world. And by 1990, we had the largest implant company in volume sales.
So what is your contribution compared to Brånemark's contribution to this field?
Well, Brånemark did long-term research that proved that if an implant is put in a certain surgical way without overheating the bone and not overloaded, it would become firmly anchored to the bone, which he called osseointegration. And what his real contribution was following these cases for 15 years and showing that if it osseointegrated in the first instance, it would probably last indefinitely.
Right.
So that was his contribution. The implant that he used was very rudimentary. It was an implant with an external hex on the top, and it wasn't self-tapping. It was made of pure titanium with a machine surface, which was too smooth. So they had a lot of problems with a soft bone in the maxilla, implants not achieving integration maybe 15-20% of the time. And because it was pure titanium, they had fractures. I brought a titanium alloy implant with good prosthetics and simplified surgical procedures to the field at a reasonable price, and that exploded the implant market.
So it wasn't like you wake up one day and I want to do an implant company. So you were practicing prosthodontist.
Yes.
And then that process of starting Corvent, which was your first company, I want to hear how that happened.
I started in my prosthetic practice after receiving a master's degree from Indiana University. I started in late 68, and I was the only prosthodontist for 1,000 general dentists in the Valley, so I got a lot of referrals of dentures. I really wanted to do more crown and bridge, but I was getting a lot of denture referrals. I heard of dental implants as a solution because the lower dentures, no matter how good you are, they're not very good. So I got involved in the early 70s with dental implants, went to all the training courses, spent time in Dr. Linkau's office in New York. Every other year I'd go spend a week in his office, and I really learned implants. But by the end of the 70s, I was disillusioned with the predictability, and I was going to quit doing implants. And then I had an idea, well, if I could just put 2 implants in the symphysis with an overdenture attachment to stabilize the lower denture, I'll have done a terrific service. And I was the first one to do 2 freestanding implants attached to a removable denture. Today, that is considered minimum standard of care by the American College of Prosthodontics. So then I developed an implant that was suited for that with an abutment that had a snap attachment on it. And I called it Corvent, and the rest was history. I just started making it, teaching it, selling it, and
how did you come up with that design? Because it's a very unique design. The Corvent,
Yes.
there are holes in the middle, there's a screw on the top.
Well, Straumann had a basket implant.
Right, that was a big one.
But it was a poor design because the neck narrowed down. So you drill a trephine hole, you put this implant in. Now you had this narrow neck that took a screw to retain. You couldn't change the angle. It had a defect in the bone. So I said, well, and they also had a screw. So I said, well, I'm going to combine the screw with the basket. And I came up with the Corvent, and years later, they converted to that design and ended up running into my patent and having to pay me a nice royalty for a number of years until they went to their solid implant, so to speak.
And the screw vent was the next one after Corvent.
Yes. In '86, the Corvent took cemented abutments,
Right.
Which really was good because you didn't have to worry about them coming loose, and you could put a variety of abutments in. In '86, I developed what is today called the internal conical connection, a lead-in bevel for lateral stability, and internal hex to screw the implant in, and internal threads below it. So that was the conical internal hex connection, which is the most widely used connection today in the market. There's many companies are making it in one. Now, some of them have gone to a steeper angle,
Right.
which is not an advantage. It makes the walls thinner.
Which year did you get the patent for internal connection?
What year? I filed it in '87 and it was issued in 1990. And a number of companies paid me royalties on that. Calcitech, Friodent, a few others.
And you were open to license it to them? You never took a route of, no, I'm not going to give it to you and only I'm the one having it.
They were offering me a lot of money for the license.
So you took it.
You're right. And my product was different enough from them anyways. So I licensed that, and in 1990, what happened in 1991 is Dentsply came along, and they wanted to distribute my product. They were the biggest company in dentistry, and we signed a distribution agreement where they distributed and I continued to make it. And that went on for 6 years, but they didn't do a very good job of marketing it. So in 97, I terminated that distribution agreement, took the company back, renamed it Paragon, and launched a number of new products and got the sales growing again. And then in the end of 2000, Calcitech, which was a San Diego company, made me a very nice offer to buy the company. And I sold to them, and Calcitech became Center Pulse, became Zimmer Dental, and today is ZimV, which is still selling the screw vent implant.
Yeah, you're going too fast. I have too many questions on the Corvent screw before the Dentsply. Question for you is, how was the revenue growth those early years of Corvent?
Exponentially,
right?
Really. First year with Corvent, we did 35,000. The next year, 135. Then $1.3 million, $3 million, $6 million, $12 million.
Did you have reps? How did you sell?
I'm trying to. Yeah, we had reps. We had some reps.
How were
not
you
many.
selling back then in the 80s, 90s?
Well, it wasn't on the internet. That's for sure.
For sure.
Through training programs. I had 6 training centers. Doctors, an oral surgeon, a periodontist, and a restorative doctor came and took my course. And I said, okay, why don't you run a training course in Miami, in Toronto, Texas, Seattle, around the country, and we provided them the training things they needed, the models and everything.
And at the time, you quit clinical dentistry as a full-time career, and you were a full-time CEO?
After 84, the only dentistry I did was live surgical demonstrations. Every week, Monday, Tuesday, I did a live course for 20 or 24 people, and I had 2 associates that came in, and they would line up the patients for me. I'd go into the surgery, lecture, uncover the implants, and that went on till about 87 or 88, and then after that I was done with that because I had offices in different countries and I was doing a lot of traveling.
And who negotiated the Dentsply deal? You get 45%, if I remember from other
Yes, but the good lesson there is don't get too good a deal because they couldn't make any money on the deal.
That's wisdom there.
So they were paying me 45% of U.S. list price for the product.
List price?
List price. And now they were selling about a third to distributors who they were giving a 50% discount. So they made nothing on their international sales. And they, for their books, it was better to put the product on the shelf and count it as an asset than it is to spend $2 to sell $1 worth of implants. So when I took the company back in 97, they had $13 million in inventory, and the deal I had struck to begin with is if I take it back, I'll buy back your inventory. So I took back all that inventory, and I started...
And you gave them all the literature in exchange for a car? What was that story?
That story. Well, the day they were there to close the deal, I said, I've got all this literature. Do you want to buy it? I would have given it to him, but it wasn't doing me any good, and I'm getting 45% of the sales anyways. Okay, but we're not paying you more than you paid for it. So we did an analysis, and I had $250,000 worth of literature. And across the street from my office was a Rolls-Royce dealership. So I went across the street and bought a Corniche convertible for $225,000, and I told him, I gave you the literature. You see that car parked out there? You just bought that for me.
That's brilliant. That's amazing. And how many years you were in litigation with them to take the company back?
Just the last 2, and it was just arbitration. It was an arbitration. And
were you excited to take it back? Because they were not selling, right? You wanted, as an entrepreneur, you want your product to be sold and seen everywhere.
The minimum that they had to buy was giving me close to $1 million a month income. So I wasn't that excited about taking it back.
And you were doing nothing for it, basically.
Doing nothing. My staff was making the product. They had so much product, they would let us decide what we wanted to make and sell them that month to meet the minimums. They didn't even get involved in that. So the idea of the arbitration was to get them to market to the standard of the industry, which is what they were required to do. I had 13 people in an education department when I gave them the company. They got rid of that, and they didn't do any education. So I was not trying to take it back. I was trying to force them to market because we were number 1 when I gave them the company. We were number 5 when I took it back.
Wow. And who came during those years to take the market share from you? I want to see what the landscape was in 2000s, basically.
Yeah, well, 3i was doing good. Stereos was doing good, and I think Stereos had sold to Nobel and saved Nobel, because if they're just selling the Brodemmark implant, they would have been out of business a long time ago. So they bought Stereos. And some of the European, Astra, some
Straumann come in.
So, yeah.
So it was getting crowded already.
But now there's 250 companies out there.
We get to that. And it just blows my mind. It's like a I don't want to call it red ocean, but it's in a way it's a red ocean. It's just bloodbath of companies, discounts over discounts, deals, and bundle it with this and that. Why is it so hot? Then is a hot market, competitive, and it's still people are pumping money into it?
Well, there's a big margin on implants. If you're selling an implant like Straumann, Nobel, and Zimvi for $530 to $540, you can afford to discount 30%, and you're still making a huge profit considering the implant costs maybe $20 to make. So and then you got the companies in Israel. There's 25 companies in Israel. They figured out they can make an implant and sell it for $50 and still make money. But really what's driving it is the public and the benefits of implants. Clear Choice has done a lot of advertising to the public, and the public is just aware of it. I call it full arch mania is what's going on now. Full arch mania. Because every dentist wants to do those full arch cases for $25,000. I just got back from Progressive Dental's symposium in Florida, which is where I got clued into your product. I saw it there and I was impressed with it. But they had 1,200 people there where they're teaching them how to close cases.
How to sell it.
Yeah, it isn't even how to get the case. It's just how to close the case when they come in. So
there's so much demand there.
There's a demand in the public because... there's a lot of people that are edentulous, but there's a lot more with terminal dentition. For instance, a friend of mine in Canada is 90 years old, and his dentist told him he needed a couple of implants. So he sent me the X-rays and for my opinion, and I said, you wouldn't want to put implants on the upper left. The whole upper's got to go.
I see.
You don't want to fix up one area when the rest is in trouble. So there's a lot of terminal dentitions out there that can only be fixed by full arch cases. And that's what's driving this industry, and that's what's driving me to an extent, because my new product line, two of the three implants that I developed are targeted at edentulous applications.
Which is brilliant. In an interview, I think you said, we don't need another innovative implant to come out. We need more cost-effective solutions so more people can use it. I remember, I think it was one of the interviews that you had.
Well, that was then.
That was then. But what do you still believe in that?
When I got back into it this time, I didn't know exactly how innovative I was going to be. You don't know till you do this and you see this. And I'm very excited about how innovative my new products are. And I'll share it with you.
We get to it.
So cost-effective, everybody's discounting like crazy now. But the problem is that dentists believe all implants work equally well. When they think that, then price is the only factor. But that is leading to a lot of complications out there. The more dentists that are placing implants, the more inexperienced dentists, until they get the experience level, they're running into peri-implantitis, fractures, loose parts. So what's needed is not a more cost-effective implant. That market is there for those who want it. It's a more predictable solution and an easier solution.
Your solution, which we get to it in detail in a few minutes. So back to 1999, you're the back CEO again, running sales and marketing and all the commercial. So what happened then?
In 2000, Calcitech came to me to buy my company. They had a very limited. They were had infringed in my patent. They had paid me a nice royalty, but their product was a cylinder implant with a very poor connection. And even though it infringed my patent, it was a poor connection. So they came and offered me 10 times earnings.
10 times earning. What was the earning back then?
Earning was $10 million. They paid me $100 million.
So you didn't sell that?
No, I did.
Oh, you did?
I sold lock, stock, and barrel to them in 2000 and the end of 2000. But what happened was that got me back into the industry again was that in 2004, the lease on the building that I had built in 94 and was leasing to them had expired, and they decided they were going to move and consolidate with their Calcitech manufacturing in Carlsbad. They laid off 80 of my 100 employees. I think
Those are
20 went
people.
with them. They were leaving my building. So I said, I think I'll go back in the business. So I ordered 12 machines. I hired 80 of the former people. And the day they moved out, I moved in. Now, I was under a 5-year non-compete, but my attorney advised me that I gave up my right to compete, but not my right to prepare to compete.
Hold on, right to prepare to compete.
Yes.
That's pretty wise.
Yes. So in 2004, my non-compete would have expired in 2001, 2007. Or the end of 2006. So I built an implant system. Now, they sued me. They weren't happy about that, but they lost. There was an arbitration, and they lost. And when the 5 years was up, I already had a product
So they
line.
knew what you're onto, right? They knew you were building this company.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, everything. So maybe a more philosophical question for you. If you wanted to start one more company, why did you sell it in first place? If you kept it, arguably, you would have grown the company, and it would have been a bigger deal or bigger acquisition later anyway.
If they hadn't moved out of my building, I would never have got back in.
It was to
I've
save
got
the employees.
a beautiful building that I built for implant manufacturing, and I had all these trained people that were being laid off. So that was the impetus then to come back in. So I came back in 2004, launched in 2006, a company called Implant Direct. And that was very successful and became really the most popular implant in the United States for the general practitioners. And it was based on value. I knew that if you're ordering this part and that part, it can get complicated. So I put everything you need into one package for specific applications, application-specific implants.
Right.
Remember, I'd come up with application-specific abutments in the 80s. Now I'm coming up with application-specific implants. I had one system called Spectra System, the same body with 6 different heads on it for different applications. And then I came up with once my patent had expired in October 2007, because I had sold them the patent, I made the legacy system, and that became
Implant Direct.
Yep.
Another more like entrepreneurial question is that $100 million check or that $100 million price tag, I'm sure it was enticing at the point to you, but how tough was it to sell your baby? You developed? Was it easy decision?
Very easy.
Very easy.
Because I had been working so hard for so long.
So you wanted a big exit, basically,
yes,
and that
I
happened.
thought, okay, I'll retire. I don't even know how old I was then.
How many days did you retire, basically? Because I heard that from a lot of entrepreneurs. It's like 2-month retirement, then they're back into the game.
Well, I'd say a year.
A year. Travel.
Well, no, I went into the aerospace industry.
Oh, you went to aerospace back then?
2002. My son-in-law had heard about this aerospace company that was in chapter bankruptcy. I bought $10 million of bank debt for $3 million. I was the only secured creditor, so we took it out of bankruptcy, and I owned an aerospace company, which had 60,000 square feet. We've since
Where was this?
In the City of Industry in Los Angeles.
Oh, LA.
We since have expanded it to 2 factories and over 200,000 square feet.
So you still kept it. It's profitable?
No.
No? You're just having fun with it?
Well, I would have more fun if it was profitable, but the aerospace business is a very tough business because the aerospace companies will place an order, you bid on it. These planes are built by the 100 lowest bidders. That should be reassuring.
That's scary.
And then doors fall off.
With 737.
So you bid on it. You got to bid to get the job, and then after you got the contract, depending on whether they are going to sell the plane, they can say, "Well, I don't want that order right now." You just bid on it. You tooled up for it.
Right.
So it's a very tricky business. But we've learned a lot in 20 years. And 2023, we were Spirit Aerospace.
I have that picture.
Spirit Aerospace, which is the largest supplier to Boeing. They make the fuselages for Boeing. In 2023, we were their supplier of the year out of 600 600 suppliers. Not on the volume that we gave.
This picture, right?
Yes.
That's the award.
That's the award. And that's a very big award to get, because then when they got tough jobs, they give it to you. They'll let you bid on it, but you're the first one, and if you're close, you're going to get it. So the business is picking up very nicely now because
What is that part you're standing next to?
Oh, that part is a 14-foot rail. The 777X plane, which has not yet gone on the market, has big GE engines, and there's 4 rails around each engine to guide the thrust reversers that come and close off the engine. Mm-hmm. So that's a $60,000, $70,000 part. If I can make a 14-foot part, I can make an implant that's 10 millimeters.
What are the margins in this business?
10% maybe. If
you have
bid
to be
right.
Super. It's the opposite of implant dentistry.
That's right.
That's amazing.
But the nice thing is that it's such a tough business that the people without deep pockets are dropping off.
Oh.
And, so and the ones that survive get awards.
You're there for the awards and the fun of it, basically.
Yes.
And running it.
We make a lot of interest. We make parts for the F-35. We make a lot of parts for the 737, 787, and Phantom Works, where they're making secret airplanes. They'll give us parts. We don't even know where it goes on the plane.
Can I come tour it once?
Anytime you want. Absolutely.
So back to the implant game. 2004, you prepared to compete.
Well, 2004, prepared. Launched in 2006. Okay. Sold in 2010. Danaher, which owns Cybron.
Right.
And they had an implant system called Innova, which wasn't very good. They came and made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and they bought 75% of the company. And the remaining 25%, there were certain options to buy. So they bought 25% the end of 2010. And the end of 2013, they bought the remaining 25%.
What was your revenue at the time when they bought it, 75% of it?
We're doing $57 million and netting 20.
That's $50 million. Oh, that's brilliant.
How's that for a margin?
That's amazing.
And
how much did they pay for it?
They paid ultimately over $300 million.
That's brilliant. And you grew to $57 million in 3 years almost, right?
50, yeah. Well, no, not really. 57 from 2006 to 2010, 4 years.
4 years.
And then from
that's explosive growth.
Yeah, from 2010 to 2013, I took it up to 100 million. I stayed on as president, and then they continued to grow after I left. But then they closed their European operation, and their prices continue to rise, and they'll be a main competitor of mine.
So what was so unique about Implant Direct back then that you get so much traction in 4 years?
First internet company, fixed prices, there's no discounts.
No bullshit price.
All in one packaging, so they're getting a lot of value.
Right.
Great products. But we fell into the trap that so many implant companies do, which I'm not doing now, and that is to have too broad a product line. You make this product to go after that company and this product to go after that, and then you come up with your next version, but you keep your old version.
You become a big catalog.
Yeah, so I end up with 16, 17 different implants. This time around, I'm only making what you need. That's our...
What you need.
What you need. We know what you need, and that's what we're making. And it boils down to about 3 implants and a very narrow product line, which has the big manufacturing advantage. You hear so much about back orders. Well, when you've got 2,500 different parts and you got 20 machines, you got to break down a machine to put another, which takes a day to set it up.
That creates a back order. That's pretty interesting.
Now I've got 25 machines, and once a machine is set up to make a certain part, it won't be changed. That is, if we got too much of that part, we'll just turn it off. But I don't see that happening.
And Jerry, when I'm hearing this story around Implant Direct specifically, you acted as a product manager. I think that has been your...
I'm head of marketing, head of products, What else am I head of?
Everything.
I have very, very good people that can do the manufacturing, the regulatory, and I acted as head of sales. I eventually brought in some sales managers. We ended up at Implant Direct, which was starting out to be strictly internet only. We ended up with 70 outside salespeople, and why did I do that? Because we would sell somebody a product, and the salesperson from another company would come in and badmouth us, and would lose this customer. So we needed our own presence in the market, and
that's why you created it.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that you had essentially database of what discounts other companies were giving, and you called them discount companies. I think it was brilliant marketing.
I created National Discount Registry. Anybody could look at it and see who was getting discounts in their zip code. I figured if these companies are going to discount their products, charge high to the people that don't know how to negotiate or the big users at the expense of the small users, guys, I'll expose it. So my salespeople would find out what discounts people were getting. They had a form, they'd fill it in, and we'd enter it, and we'd...
They hated you for that.
I hope so.
That's brilliant.
I've talked to the heads of Straumann and the various companies, and they don't even know what the product they're selling. They don't know why. When they come up with a new product, they don't know if that's going to be good or bad or whether they need a new product. I could go through their product lines and throw out 3/4 of their implants and make them a lot more profitable. But they don't have the confidence because they don't have the knowledge. So they have to listen to this opinion leader or that opinion leader.
Or the executives are higher.
Yes. I called it organic incompetence. And I told Danaher they were suffering from organic incompetence. And what is that? Well, the person who hires at a high level, hires somebody below him, if he doesn't know the job that person has to do, then he can't pick the right person.
Right.
Now they got that person doesn't know the job, and he picks the wrong people, and it goes throughout the whole organization. People are reporting to people that never did it and don't know what they should be looking for.
And here in our company too, we're founders. You know, we show up, fight every single day. And we feel sorry for our competitions who are really not run by the founders level of mentality for the most part. And it's fun to compete. So how was negotiation with Nobel? Oh, Danaher at the time.
Well, they came to me in 2009. And they were talking, they were interested, and they were talking about $200 million. And I said, I'm not interested. And then they came back the next year, and we got the price up to where I was interested in. And
did you have a price in mind? Or
I really didn't. Somebody told me, a very wise person in the industry, I don't want to mention his name, said you should ask 300, not 200. I said, okay. So I said, okay, I want 300. But the funny thing was that they negotiated $280,000. They knocked off 20 because they were going to let me keep 25% instead of 20%. And they said, and we're giving you Innova to blend in. Well, when I finally looked at the books of Innova and saw I was losing money, I went back to them. I said, the deal's off unless I get my 300 because you're giving me a company that's a loser. Now, if somebody's going to offer you 280 versus 300, I don't know who's going to walk away from that.
20 million,
I certainly wouldn't for 20 million, but I somehow convinced them that I would, and they gave me the extra 20 million, and I think they regretted that. And
I mean, the ability to walk is the best negotiation tactic, and it's not easy. And how was it negotiating with corporate executives? Was it fun? You had an advantage. You were the entrepreneur.
It wasn't so much. The negotiation took place over 45 minutes in their office. The head guy said, "Here's what we'll pay you got up to 280. I was asking 300. They said, "Okay, we'll give you 25% instead of 20% of the company," and I was happy with the deal.
So you never hired bankers or those sort of things?
No. No, there was no intermediate. Nobody came with me on the talk.
And you never raised any money for any of your companies?
Never borrowed. Bootstrapped right from 1982 on.
Which is brilliant.
Well, I got no partners.
Well, something I wasn't able to do. I raised a lot of money, and at the time it was fun because you inject a lot of inorganic growth by the capital, but at the same time, it limits your own upside because once you sell, you have a smaller piece of the pie. That's brilliant. So let's fast forward to 2000. What time did you come out of Nobel?
Not Nobel. It was what happened was that they bought me in effectively January 2014, and September 2014 they announced they were buying Nobel for $2 billion. Now the first thing I told them when they bought
that was
$2
the price.
billion. When they bought me in 2010, the first meeting in 2011, I said, you know, Nobel's got a stock value of $1 billion. You should buy them and integrate it with mine. And they laughed at me. You know, 3 years later, they paid twice as much for the company. So they bought Nobel, but they keep Nobel separate from Implant Direct, whereas Straumann and Neodent are more integrated, same shopping cart. And today, once they bought me, then they started integrating the shipping and the management. But they try and present as two separate lines.
And all these years, were you tracking Zimmer, and later became Zimvi, your first product line? Were you tracking what they were doing? And
they did very well.
They did very well.
With the screw vent. But what's happened in the last year, 2023, is both Zimvi and Implant Direct came up with their next generation of my product, which is a big step back in design.
Oh, wow.
And I've written on my Niznick.com controversy section. You can see the analysis of the shortcomings of every implant system pretty near. And Implant Direct came out with the Iconic, which was combining two of my implants. And ZimV came out with instead of the titanium tapered screw vent, they came out with it, which is TSV. They came out with a TSX, which just made the threads a little deeper, but the cutting groove is bidirectional, so it creates a lot of bone chips, and not a good thing. You want to compress bone instead of cutting it for higher stability. So they don't have the people that know how to make an improvement. They know how to make a change. They know how to make good marketing to explain their change.
And you're very openly criticizing other implant systems in your LinkedIn, and that has been working for you.
I don't know if it's working, but what I see on LinkedIn is people post things that are inaccurate, and I just use that, jump in and explain what the science shows, what the research shows, and then I save those into analysis on Niznick.com, and then next time somebody does it, I just put the link in there, what I've already written with pictures and everything. So yes, I'm not, as a matter of fact, this interview came out of watching you interview Tobias Richter on the Matrix implant.
Sure. And then I just read the Neodent, I think it was 17 pages you wrote on Neodent.
Yeah, 13 pages.
13 pages.
Took me 13 pages to write all my criticisms of...
So why are they so successful then? It's like almost number one in that full arch.
Yeah, they're growing tremendously. Why? They got Straumann's imprimatur, credibility of Straumann. They got big sales forces. They'll discount like crazy. Clear Choice buys their implants somewhere between $70 and $80. Now that same implant sells to a dentist in the United States for $229 and sells in Brazil for $23. You can go search Neodent, get into their shopping cart in Brazil, do the conversion of the currency, and you'll see that same implant is $23 that Clear Choice is paying $70 or $80, and that they're selling. So I think that's a great opportunity for me. There's a number of shortcomings of that implant. But they get opinion leaders to tout it. My last posting on LinkedIn, where they had a salesman in sort of a sing-along where they were shouting out all the advantages, so I had to add another page to my analysis breaking down why every one of those things could be a negative instead of a positive.
Yeah, and I read them all. Jerry, and how are you in hotel business all of a sudden?
stupid. I got into what was called hard money lending at a high interest rate. So I lend somebody some money to buy a couple of hotels, and this one I ended up taking back. I couldn't sell it, so I renovated it. I put about $25 million into fixing it up, made a Beverly Hills hotel in Bristol, Connecticut, which is the home of ESPN.
This is Bristol, right?
Yes, that's the convention center. There was some acreage beside me. I know this is 140 rooms or something like that, full-service hotel, one tower of suites, indoor swimming pool, sports bar, everything. There was some empty land beside me, and I wanted to build an extended stay hotel. Because there was one down the street that was doing pretty well, and Hilton had come out with a new brand called Home 2, which is very popular, and I wanted to get it before anybody else did. So I tried to buy the land. I wanted to buy 2 acres. They wouldn't. Otis owned it. They wouldn't sell me 2. They said you can have the whole 6. So I took 6 acres, and then I ended up designing another hotel and a convention center. And the convention center will hold 650 people to a sit-down dinner, and weddings and bridal suites and the whole 9 yards. It's probably the nicest facility between Boston and New York. And the idea is that this will bring people to the hotel. So I got into it as a much bigger project than I thought it was going to be, but we're now completed, and we're very excited about operating it.
That's brilliant. That's the new one?
That's the graphic image of the facility. This would be the convention center. That's the Home 2, and that's the DoubleTree in the back.
I would love to come tour all of them at one shot.
Yes.
The hard money lending part was pretty... What year was it?
Well, it had to be 13 years ago.
13 years ago. So between hotel, aerospace, and now your new gig, your company in implant, how do you divide your time? How does your day-to-day look like? How much you spend time on the aerospace versus hotel, and now on the implant side of things?
Depends on what's on TV.
Tell me.
I have very good people in each of these operations, and I'm in constant communication with them, and they need my permissions if there's a capital investment.
Right.
But the day-to-day operations, I empower people. I give them what they need to be successful. I support them. I appreciate them. And I built some very good teams in the aerospace. As well, we were almost 200 employees.
In the aerospace side.
In the aerospace. Hotels probably about the same. And the implant company is going to be at 100 very soon. My time is spent thinking, really marketing, design, and coming up with the initiatives that I want to do.
And you drive the vision, they implement.
Yes.
And the hotel side and aerospace side, you didn't get involved in day-to-day operations, I assume. No. But implant, you will.
Not day-to-day, because I've got people that can handle it. If they're in it, they can do it much better than I can.
Yes.
I could give the direction. I want to change this product. I want to go with this, be at this trade show. I want to write this ad. I want to do this. So I'm in the background making it all happen.
And this is your plane.
Yes.
Which is the N1Z, which is NIS. I assume you fly between hotel, aerospace, and Calabasas.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
I'm into flying. I was into flying.
You're a pilot.
I'm a pilot. I'm a commercial pilot. I had type ratings in 2 different jets. But in the last 10 years, since I bought that plane 10 years ago, I don't go up front.
Right.
I got 2 pilots that fly it.
To fly them around. So you're 81.
Not February 3rd.
Another week you'll be 81. You can just continue cruising, enjoy your life, all the good stuff, but you decided to go back into the game.
Yes.
Why is that?
That's a good question. I had the properties. I had the implant factory, and I kept it empty. I wouldn't sell it or lease it out. I had in Valencia a 20,000 1,000 square foot building where we had over 100 people in customer service. That building was mine and empty. And I have in Vegas the shipping and the clean room as part of a building complex that I have. So I had all the infrastructure, I had the people, I had the knowledge, and I knew I could make improvements. I knew what was needed to simplify the products. Until I got into the design, ideas didn't come to me exactly how I was going to do this. But I'm very excited about the innovations that I'm coming up with, and I'm happy to share them with you.
We'll love to hear them. Before we get into it, where does the name Nizplant come from?
Nizplant. Well, I've never named an implant after me, but this implant is so innovative.
Right.
And it goes back to the very first thing that got me into implants, overdenture. So this is an implant that has a dual function platform. You can use it for an overdenture. It'll take a locator attachment, or one with a will make, and it also can take a screw retained.
Right.
So the idea is that you could put in 4 of these implants and convert their denture to an overdenture as a good transition. It takes a lot less effort to convert a denture to an overdenture than to start drilling holes and try and make it a fixed case, a lot less chair time. And then if the patient wanted a fixed case down the road, you could come back and the implant will accept the screw-retained multi-unit abutment.
So it's a combo.
The top
well,
is
you know what? I'm not going to spoil it. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Very exciting.
So on the left is one of my first ads. My first ad on Corvent, showing its different attachments for overdentures, for multi-unit, some cases that I did. There's 2 freestanding. So this goes back to 82. And from there, I go to the new system, which I call Gen 5. So Generation 1 was the core vent. Generation 2 in 86 was the screw vent. Generation 3 was the tapered screw vent in 1999. And Generation 4 was the legacy with Implant Direct, and I call the new implant Generation 5. It's a tapered screw, the same material, the same surface as all these other implants were, with a little different platform that it gives you 2.5 millimeters of smooth neck, and I'll explain why that is. Now, what made Implant Direct successful was its online ordering, really simplified things, and the customer service of having 100 telemarketers in one facility that we could train and educate. And I'm going to try and duplicate that with the new company. As a matter of fact, we've already started to build the customer service and gather the email addresses. So in 2011, an independent firm did a survey, and we had the highest customer satisfaction in U.S. Astra was second, Straumann was third, Nobel and Zimmer were fourth, and then some other ones. So we could deliver with a customer service and a high-quality product. That's what made Implant Direct successful. This is an image of the new products. Now, there's really the same body on 3 implants. The first one is the Gen 5, and here I show you the price we're going to hit the market at, $100. Gen 5 Plus is the same implant with a friction fit healing collar attached that serves as the transmucosal part of a multi-unit abutment or the base of a variety of other abutments. So we've got the Gen 5, the Gen 5 Plus. Here it's showing with its fixation screw. And then the Nizplant, which is a one-piece implant, and the top is the size of a locator attachment. On the outside, it would take a locator attachment. On the inside, it takes a snap-in ball. So this also has internal threads. An internal set screw comes closing those threads off. If you're using it for an overdenture, you can take out the set screw and add a variety of abutments or just a titanium sleeve for a multi-unit. Here's one of the patents that I've filed. A 2.5 millimeter smooth neck with score lines at 1, 2, and 2.5. The idea is hybrid designs are gaining in popularity because people recognizing peri-implantitis is a big concern. So if we have an implant that has a smooth neck, it's easier for the patients to clean. Studies have shown that the Straumann with its smooth neck has about 1/3 the peri-implantitis incident of companies like Astra and Nobel, who at the time had their rough surface all the way to the top. Now the Nobel has a smooth neck as well. But what I did is I added 1 millimeter to the length of every implant. A 13 is really 14. Now we call it 14. And we have score lines. And the trick is to get the implant abutment junction just above the bone so that you don't need to recontour the crest in order to get a flared abutment in. And you've got the junction supracrestal, so if there's any micro leakage or any bacteria in that niche, it's out of the bone and in the soft tissue. Then you want to have some smooth below the crest, because when you bone remodels and you lose some bone, you want a smooth surface exposed. Fact of the matter is that most of the time when you're placing an implant, the ridges are uneven. If you put it level with the lingual, it'd be 2 millimeters exposed on the labial. Or if you're doing an extraction socket, you got to do a lot of bone grafting to cover up the exposed surface. This should eliminate a lot of that. So that's one of the big changes, is a longer smooth neck with score lines. So here again is the Gen 5. The Gen 5 Plus with this collar is friction fitted. We'll talk about that. And by adding this prosthetic screw, you turn it into a standard multi-unit abutment. And the Nizplant has a dual function platform. So here's the patent that I filed on the extender, friction fit extender, that will get that junction up higher. The big thing is vertical flexibility when you're placing an implant. The ridge can be sloped, bone can recede. You got tissue thicknesses different if you want it to be one stage. So you can't just rely on a fixed smooth length neck. You need the ability to move that implant up and down. And here is the Gen 5 Plus. So this shows the friction fit collars that are added at the factory. There are cover screws if you need to, if you want to just use it as a healing collar. There's two different heights of cover screws. These are the screws that would convert it to a multi-unit abutment. We have a variety of abutments that'll sit on that platform. So this will get that platform up closer to the level of the tissue where it's easier to restore. This is like Nobel's on-one system, except there you have to buy the healing collar and screw it in, and then you screw in your prosthesis or your crowns into the top of that screw. This healing collar is attached friction fit. An important thing is the emergence profile. Companies that have one connection only end up with a very poor emergence profile on the wider implants. So we've got two different connections. They're color-coded, yellow or pink. And because of that friction fit occurring, we can even overlap the shoulder, as you see here on the wider one, and have a perfect emergence profile on a wide implant. This is showing all the variations in height. A big problem is how many abutments are you going to inventory? You need 2, 3, 4, 5 millimeter abutments. You don't know what the tissue thickness will be. Well, with this implant, you can move this from 2 to 4.5 above the bone, just from the positioning relative to the score lines. And then these fixation screws that you attach, the prosthetic screws, come in several heights as well. So all you need to inventory are the fixation screws. 4 of them for $100. Your entire inventory is a couple of sizes of these fixation screws, prosthetic fixation screws, perfect for totally dentless applications. This is for totally dentless, but also with all the different abutments that we attach. When you're uncertain of the tissue thickness, this is a great implant. It gets the connection up. If you ever want to drop the margin of the crown down, you could take that off and go right down to the implant. Here's a case of immediate insertion of a number of implants. And this is typical. You see exposed threads and rough surface that are going to require bone grafting, whereas with the Gen 5 Plus, the extender is already pre-attached and the neck is smooth, so it doesn't matter if it gets exposed. And then you attach these prosthetic screws and you convert it into a multi-unit case. Whereas here you can see they're trying to attach the abutments in a pool of blood. You trap blood in the connection. So this is a much cleaner, simpler solution. Then the Nizplant we've talked about, it's a one-piece implant, so we can make it 3 millimeters in diameter, all the way up to 5.7. And the platform is the same. It's a lead-in bevel internal hex, so it'll function as a multi-unit abutment or for anything else you want, or an overdenture. The idea being that you can deliver 4 of these with an overdenture and later convert it to a full arch fixed restoration. And filed a patent on that as well. Here's a simulated case showing 4 of them in the maxilla. The packaging is very simple. This implant hasn't had its surface put on it yet, but this is the kind of vial that we have, and all the components for the overdenture are included at that $150 price and come in the package. We're also going to simplify the surgical procedures. Here's our surgical tray. We'll have drill stops, color-coded drill stops, that you can decide, do I want to place the implant a millimeter above the bone, or do I want to place it level with the bone? You pick the drill stop you want, and the diameter, outside diameter of the drill stops works with a surgical guide. Some problem with surgical guides, you have to use a key for every different drill, or you have to, some people are now launching drill kits where they're length specific and have the hub on it. You don't need to do that with this, and you don't need to guess where the stop is based on how high you position the surgical tray, because you just put this down and it'll stop on the bone when you want. So I think that's going to be a real neat addition. All right, here's a picture of my aerospace companies. This is a fuel floor for I'm not sure what. This is the thrust reverser, and here's the award we received. And we didn't receive it for being Spirit Aerospace's biggest supplier, just the one with the best precision and the best on-time delivery. Here's a picture of the hotel. The convention center, and I'll be doing lectures in this on the East Coast, 2 18-foot screens in the ballroom. And finally, this is a nice image of the 3 implants, Gen 5, Gen 5 Plus, and Nizplant. And we think this is going to really be a benefit to the profession when I bring this to the marketplace. We're going to do it internet only. There'll be no salespeople. How do you make an implant and sell it at $100 when you're investing $25 million or more before you sell your first implant? And you do it by keeping your product line narrow and innovative. And have good customer service from inside salespeople, and a simple shopping cart. Remember, there's only 3 implants to choose from. There's not 16. So it's really simple, and pick the right implant for the right application. And that's what Paragon is going to be all about. Simply smarter.
Simply smarter. This is brilliant, Dr. Niznick. So, Nizplant. Now, you want to answer my question?
Why Nizplant?
Yes.
Because it goes back to the first thing that got me into implants, an overdenture. So here's an implant that is designed for an overdenture. Put it in, and now Zest sells implants for overdentures, but it's a 2-piece implant. It's got a post sticking up, and you screw in the locator top. So that means that you need, they got different diameters, different lengths of implants, and different heights of locator tops. This is set up where you move the implant up and down as you need it because of its neck, and yet it can be for full arch cases. which brings me to your company and what got me excited when I saw what you can accomplish with full arch restorations.
With the hybrid Onyx stuff for hybrid prosthetics. Absolutely.
Yes.
What do you think of 3D printing in general?
I think it's fantastic. I've lived through 60 years. I mean, let's see, I graduated in 66.
Right.
We're coming up on our 60th class reunion.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of things. I mean, high speed was exciting.
Right.
So you go back to high speed, and then you got CT scans, and you got what you guys can do with printing. That's why you got full arch mania. The implants work,
it's easier,
and the prosthetics are getting simpler and better thanks to you guys.
So for the Paragon, you don't plan to have any sales reps, which I admire that. It's going to be brilliant. So it's just e-commerce plus a call center, right?
Right.
Amazing. I think Dr. Oliveira, before this podcast interview, and he was talking about, I still prefer to stay below the bone. He wanted me to ask that question from you. Why are you going against the common knowledge right now?
Well, that's it. I'm taking on the industry with that one. Let me tell you why they go subcrestal. Okay. They go subcrestal because the implants have a blasted surface and they don't want it to become exposed to the soft tissue. Mm-hmm. So they push it down. They bury it a couple of millimeters, thinking they're accomplishing something when bone grows over the shoulder. You don't even want the shoulder. The shoulder is there because the implant only has one connection. So the wider implants using the same abutment creates a shoulder, which is a niche. If you lose some tissue and bone, you got an undercut that's hard to clean. If you're going to have a leaking margin, do you want it occurring in the bone or do you want it occurring above the bone? So there's studies that clearly show placing it supracrestal gives you less bone loss than subcrestal. I cite that. I didn't open up the links, but it was in that presentation. There's also shows that you get less stability. If you move it below the cortical bone, like the Megagen advertises and a lot of dentists do, you've given up the best part of your stability, that cortical bone that's there. And if you want to have a connection that's easy to get to, and also if you go below the bone, you usually need to contour the crest of the ridge. They got drills that go in and flat and open up the opening so you can get your flared abutment in. A lot of extra steps that are unnecessary. Just another advantage of a millimeter above the bone is you get soft tissue attachment to that millimeter that is not disrupted when you take off the healing collars and the abutments and the transfers. Now, this concept is advocated by Straumann, who has a 2.8 millimeter neck, and they recommend some of them are pushing the smooth neck in now. They don't know how much, but they're pushing it in, but they're leaving the connection above and the smooth neck above. Nobel has come up with On One. Some of their key opinion leaders said, no, look, we don't want to be chasing this connection down in a deep hole. Let's give us a healing collar we can attach that we can then use as the platform for the abutment. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I just solve all those problems
by just sticking it out.
By making the implant a millimeter longer, having a smooth neck so you can vary the height, and then taking it to the next step with a friction fit extender that comes with the implant and can be taken off if you ever need to get back and becomes an abutment. And as a matter of fact, some of this came from August's case that he did on my wife.
Right.
A perfect example, and I've told him this. He took out the tooth and he did the implant, and he had an 11.5 millimeter implant in, and he screwed it in, and it didn't quite have good stability. So he went a little deeper with the same implant because he didn't have a longer one, and he didn't want. He's already contaminated this implant, so he ends up 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters below the crest of the ridge. Well, then what do you get? You get the bone healing down like this. It worked out fine, but the ideal is why give away that contact with the crestal ridge why bury it where you have to chase it down into a tunnel of soft tissue? It just makes sense. I think I can convince the profession it's the way to go.
Do that. I think when Steve Ballmer handed the baton to Satya at Microsoft, I read it somewhere, give him one advice: be bold and be right. I think you're bold with that movement, and I'm sure you're going to be right in that. And convince the industry.
I'm not standing alone because right. I've got Straumann and Dan Boozer and Tarno, and those guys are advocating a hybrid design, and get the connection above. So I've the biggest stories, except they don't have the right implant to do it. You know, if they put a Straumann implant in with a 2 millimeter neck in the soft tissue, then now they got the rough surface right at the level of the bone, and it's going to get exposed. If they push it down, they can do that, but there's no lines and no way to control that.
Any complications on the soft tissue recession is going to expose the body of the implant? Any of those? 'Cause I think that was another question.
If you got soft tissue recession and exposes it, better it should be smooth, because if you get a rough surface exposed, now you got plaque and biofilm, and that's what leads to progressive bone loss. So I don't care if it gets exposed. What does it matter if the first 2 millimeters above the tissue is a smooth abutment or smooth implant?
Right.
As long as it's smooth.
That's right. And the other innovative part of this implant is the flexibility you have on that abutment. You mentioned you could use it as a locator for overdentures or convert it
That's
to
on the
Nizplant.
One-piece implant.
Yes, I see.
You just screw it in, and now you got two abutments in one. Now, that only works in an edentulous jaw. I don't know that I would recommend using it for a single tooth.
Sure.
Because it's only got one diameter to the platform. But for edentulous applications, it's perfect.
What's the price? $100?
$100 for the standard implant, the Gen 5. $135 for the Gen 5 Plus with the extender. A prosthetic screw for another $25 will convert it to an implant and multi-unit abutment, so you get $160. And the Nizplant is $150 with all the attachments. So it's for an overdenture. It's less than buying a locator abutment itself. You're going to get the implant and all the attachments.
And you mentioned you had some innovative packaging ideas a couple of days ago. What was that? Can you share?
No, the innovation was that we could snap the neck of the Nizplant into the carriers that we already have. We were going to make carriers, titanium carriers that friction fit in, held in our vial, but I realized we don't need it for the Nizplant because it's got an undercut there, so it just snaps in.
On the engineering aspect of it, I have two questions. One, why no one has invented any non-screw type of fastener, which are pretty common in engineering, for easy in and out, less essentially.
There is. Bicon uses a Morris taper. Anything that you fix by tapping in can come loose from tapping out.
Right.
And then you don't have a good emergence profile because everything is coming out of the same center or hole. And when you got coming out of a narrow center hole and it widens like this, if the tissue recedes, now you got an undercut and you can't prep the post to get down, you get your crown margin down because you're going into an undercut. So it just creates a lot of problems.
With 3D printing, the problem we solve is we have freedom of shape. And coming from outside of this industry, a tooth-shaped implant. Do you see that as a direction? Again, I'm brainstorming with you here.
No, absolutely not. You want to have that implant on the shelf and look, and then you take out the tooth and you say, what size do I need? Or you look at it on a CT and you figure it out, and you pick up that stock implant and put it in, and that's it. You start to think about making the implant to fit into roots.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to have good retention, so you couldn't immediately load it.
So I think on what problem you're solving, as you asked that question, do you think there's any need for customization of the actual implant screw to the patient? Do you see that direction?
The implant screw, meaning the implant?
The implant screw get customized to me specifically. Right now it's a stock, right?
Drill a hole.
Right.
I used to tell dentists, look, when you're starting out, drill a hole with a drill that can only cut a round hole and screw in a self-tapping implant. If you screw up, move over, drill another hole, and now you're experienced. And I call that on-the-jaw training. You want something that's so simple. Why are implants so hot? Because they're so successful.
It's hard to mess up, huh?
It's more predictable than prepping a crown and taking an impression, and probably lasts longer. So this is a real boon to the public. The price has got to be right. You got to design the implants so they don't give you complications down the road, and they don't break. And hopefully Paragon is going to add something to that.
Absolutely. I mean, I asked you before the interview, it's going to be a lot of work for you. I admire you signing up for another round of entrepreneurship and new company.
Well, my wife, who I've been married 60 years this August,
you
said she took me for better or worse, but not lunch. So I'm doing my thing, and we're enjoying it, and we're getting it done. We're making jobs for good people. We're going to make it easier for dentists to be successful, and that's my biggest reward.
So before we wrap, Jerry, there's one more thing. Las Vegas home. What was the story of that?
Oh, the one I sold to the Sultan of Brunei?
Right.
There's a lot of stories. We built a very nice home in 1.6 acres, a gated area in Las Vegas. This is back in 95, 96. And I get a knock on the door one day from the broker who had sold me the lot. Do you want to sell the home? I said, no, it's not for sale. Well, if you were selling it, what would you ask for it? I said, $8.5 million. He came back in a half hour. He says, can you be out in a week? And he says, that'll be $500,000 in commission and $8 million for the house. I said, no. I said $8.5 million. He said, okay. It was written up in LA Times as the highest price home sold in Vegas as of that time. Very nice Italian villa. And it was the Sultan of Brunei was buying it for his mistress.
Oh, wow.
So I've been in the house and I met the mistress, and very nice girl. And that's that house. I've had a lot of luck with building homes, and
you got out in a week.
We got out in a week with our toothbrushes.
That's amazing, Jerry. Wish you all the best with Paragon, and thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you, and congratulations on your wonderful business.
Thank you so much.